Welcome to the Darkstream. VoxDay, voxday.blogspot.com, and Infogalactic. Well, we tested out the verified feature today. Pleased to be able to say that it actually works. We still have some refinements that we need to add before we take it live, but it's already working. It's already showing up, has a separate tab, and it's already limited to the appropriate editor. So definitely happening, definitely going to be going live with it soon, and so we'll be doing an announcement about that next week, I think. The launch of the Van Creveld book has been going very well. Actually hit, I think, number 734 on Amazon, so thank you guys very much for that. I know Dr. Van Creveld appreciates it. I think he's a little surprised. His books are usually a little bit more of an esoteric market, and so he's not really used to that sort of first day response. So that was a nice surprise. Anyhow, yes, it's not showing up on Amazon Germany. Germany has some pretty strict laws about displaying the swastika, and so the cover is essentially illegal in Germany, and so Amazon has to abide by that. In fact, technically, companies like Facebook and Twitter can even get in trouble for having those images displayed. I think if they get a complaint, they have 24 hours to take it down, and then they get in trouble. So and subject to fines and that sort of thing. So that's actually something that Gab and Infogalactic are having to pay attention to. So, but you know, not being quite so high profile, it's not quite as urgent. And it's pretty easy. I mean, I can't speak for any of the other services, but I can tell you right now what we're going to do. If we run into those issues, we're simply going to block access to anyone in Germany. They're just not going to be allowed to use it. So, and that's what I've advised Gab to do as well. I don't know if they will, but you know, I think that a lot of European countries tend to be very insecure and worried about being left out. I think if the tech companies were to join forces and everyone simply refused to serve Germany, I have a feeling that those laws would get overturned in a hurry. Whether they have the wherewithal to do that or not, I don't know. You know, I don't have too many connections with those companies, so we'll see. Anyhow, you may have seen a post that I put up today, either on the blog or on Twitter, but it was kind of shocking. A gentleman did an analysis based on the 2014 federal U.S. budget, and what he determined is that on average, the average white individual pays about $2.8 thousand more in taxes than they receive in benefits. You know, which is kind of the way it should be, in the sense that if you're not running, you know, if you're not deficit spending and so forth. But then he went on and observed that the average black individual receives $10,000 more in benefits than they pay in taxes. And so what that means, if you add it up over a lifetime, that means that every white individual is essentially transferring about $384,000 to a black individual. Now, obviously, that's not all coming directly out of your pocket. There's the debt mechanic that is taking place. The government spends more money than it takes in. So it's not all coming out of your income, it's also coming out of the debt that you theoretically owe as your share of the government and so forth. So what the real practical application of it is that the reason the budget deficit exists is to pay for blacks and Hispanics. Hispanics, ironically, are almost as bad. Although their average is 2,700 less per year, because they live longer. Hispanics actually live longer than whites in the USA now. So the net transfer from the average white to the average Hispanic lifetime is about $330,000. Now, I mean, this is just a metric. It's not too terribly significant in our day-to-day lives, except for the fact that it illustrates the unsustainable nature of the U.S. economic and political system. This is why the infrastructure is crumbling. This is why it's not possible to pay for landing on the moon and so forth. This is not, and keep in mind, this is not even bringing in the additional costs to lifestyle choices. This does not mean that this isn't factoring in the cost of crime and all this other stuff. This is just straight up macroeconomic spending. What most of the, what a significant portion of the federal budget is going towards is basically just paying to keep blacks and Hispanics alive. Now, and so this is the worst thing about this. Yes, obviously the opportunity cost is tremendous. Obviously this is a serious problem, but here's where it gets worse, is that this changing demographics that the media is celebrating, the browning of America and all this sort of thing, means that the system is going to break. Once you get to the point that there are not enough productive whites, and to a lesser extent Asians, paying that surplus into the system, and you have more people on the other end taking up resources, requiring resources, it cannot continue. It will not continue. And that's why there's a couple different options. Somebody said confiscation comes next, socialism. Well, the problem, of course, they can't do that. They know they can't do that, because socialism doesn't even work with a purely white population. Socialism creates economic disincentives. We've seen how rapidly it devastated Peru. Why did it devastate Peru so fast when it took 70 years to destroy the Soviet Union? Because Russians are vastly more productive than Peruvians. You take away the capitalist incentive from Peruvians, they don't do anything on the whole. And again, keep in mind, if you're a black or a Hispanic individual, don't get all bent out of shape out of this. These are facts, and when we're talking about macro, we're not talking about micro. Oh, Venezuela, sorry, not Peru. You're right, Venezuela. I was was joking with Ed Latimer on Twitter today, and someone was saying, we're talking about the implications of this, and I said, look, Ed Latimer is, in my opinion, one of the few blacks who is worth, the $400,000 lifetime, whatever. There are people, who are absolutely worth that to a society. But there's a lot that aren't. And it doesn't matter what you think, or what I think, or who I like, or who I don't like. We're talking about macroeconomics. We're talking about people as numbers and so forth. Okay, so and I'm not even talking about solutions here. I am simply trying to understand the extent of the problem, because I'd like to know. I'd like to have an idea, if possible. I would like some heads up on when U.S. society is going to fall apart. Because even though I don't live there, it will have a tremendous impact on me, on my family, on friends and acquaintances and people I care about in the States. It would be inhuman, and it would be unconscionable to simply ignore it when you know that this is happening. And like someone said, the solution is to record what you're saying for posterity. Saying, we need to chronicle the decline. We need to chronicle the destruction and the collapse. Because, hopefully, when this cycle continues 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now, people can learn from our mistakes. We've talked before about the importance of planting trees that you're never going to sit in the shade of. Okay, chronicling the decline, understanding the reason for the collapse is going to be very, very helpful to our children's children's children. People argue all the time about why the Roman Empire fell. I mean, you can see right there the Tan books. It's a three-book set on the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. Gibbon, being a bit of an anti-Christian bigot, blamed Christianity. I personally think it's foolish. If you read the big green ones there, they've got quite a bit. That's the Cambridge Medieval History series, the original one, and they do not accept Gibbon's premise at all. There's other theories about the lead pipes, etc., etc. I personally think that the main reason is functionally similar to the what it's doing in the United States, and I think it is because of empire and immigration. Empire and immigration is something that has always caused societies to collapse. Once you start granting citizenship to foreigners, and once those foreigners start governing you, then people, that's when you see things fall apart. Empires always fall, and they usually fall sooner than people think they're going to. Who expected the Soviet Empire to fall when it did? Who expected the people did expect the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and they did expect the Ottoman Empire to fall. But there are plenty of other empires that people did not expect to fall. Napoleon's empire, that collapsed very quickly. the Third Reich, the German Empire. That collapsed very quickly. The Athenian Empire was a huge shock. Athens seemed to be at its peak of power when they went and invaded Syracuse. And by the end of all that, they ended up being, defeated by Sparta. So, these are normal processes. These things happen. We have to expect them. It's very clear where we are in the cycle. We are very, very late in the cycle. Is it possible that we'll catch a second wind? Is it possible that we'll have a reformation, etc., etc.? It's possible. But the Venetian Republic, the Venetians were pretty good about not really building an empire. How do we hurry up the process? If you want to hurry up the process, it's simple. The United States infrastructure is extremely centralized, it's extremely vulnerable, and it's extremely rickety. And so, anyone who wanted to, I would bet that 50 people, if they wanted to, could completely take down the United States. I'm not gonna spell out how it would be done because I'm not interested in doing it. I don't want it to happen. But it's very obvious to me, and I'm sure it should be obvious to anyone who pays close enough attention. What will replace the current system? I think what's going to replace the current system is you're going to see the United States become a bit more like Europe, which is to say, it's going to be the United States is going to be replaced, and Canada as well, is going to be replaced by anywhere from 5 to 20 different sovereign countries. A few of them may be ethno-states, some of them will be mixed, and so forth. No, it's not going to be a North American Union. It's going to be the opposite. They're going to break apart. And so, the globalist trend has already peaked. We're already past it. And so, that's what the historical trend would indicate. Now, it's possible, that new empires will eventually arise from those. Robert Adams' Horse Clans novels are not impossible. But plenty of people see this coming. A lot of smart people see this coming. This is not a big surprise. Shouldn't be a big surprise to anyone. Well, that's where it gets tricky about who will keep the nukes and so forth. And so, it's just, there's so many X factors, there's so many unknowns, we don't know. But what we do know, and to get back to my original point, we know from looking at the math, from looking at the budget math, and from looking at the demographic math, we know that this current situation cannot possibly continue. I've said for a long time that 2033 was when I expected it to happen, but it's hard to say. So anyhow, the important thing is just to be mentally prepared for this sort of thing, and hopefully to be, not to go into like survivalist mode or anything, but just be aware and have some preparations that will increase the chances of you and yours surviving and perhaps even thriving in the future. So Yeah, one thing you definitely do want to, live somewhere where you know, you can grow food and that sort of stuff. I don't think you want to be living in Manhattan in that time frame. So anyhow, that's really all I have for tonight. Sorry if it's a bit of a downer, but that's what we see, and that's what the numbers indicate to us. Hopefully the God Emperor sees this and will take steps to correct it. Always remember, the trend is never linear. The trends are secular, and they're also fractal, and so you cannot ever assume that you know exactly what's going to happen, or even that you know exactly what the next direction will be. So, in any event, have a good evening, have a good weekend. If you haven't picked up Hitler in Hell yet, I strongly recommend that you do so, because it's now on Kindle Unlimited, so if you got Kindle Unlimited, you got no excuse not to pick it up and read it. Have a good weekend.